Today we're going to be talking about a fascinating episode in the history of the Principality of Antioch, the Battle of Artah. The last time I talked about the Battle of Haran, which was a serious defeat for the Principality of Antioch and a major gain for its Orthodox and Seljuk Turkish neighbors. Haran proved particularly fruitful for Ridwan, the Seljuk Turkish emir of Aleppo, who, although he didn't participate in the battle, used the opportunity of Antioch's defeat to capture several of the principality's castles on its eastern frontier. One of these castles was the important fortress of Artah, some 25 miles northeast of Antioch, on the old Roman road that ran between Antioch and Aleppo. After his defeat at Haran, Bohemond, Prince of Antioch, decided to travel to Western Europe in an attempt to raise troops for a new campaign. He left his nephew Tancred in charge of the principality. Tancred, as we've discussed before on Real Crusades history, was one of the outstanding figures of the early years of the Crusader states. He was a very young man, and yet had already proved himself to be a capable commander. Not long after his uncle's departure, Tancred took steps to erase the damage done by the Battle of Haran and rejuvenate the Principality of Antioch. He began to organize a campaign against his Turkish neighbors in the east. His army was composed of troops from both Turbessel and Edessa, as well as from Antioch, and in the spring of 1105, he set out to recover the fortress of Artah. Ridwan of Aleppo had been preparing to assist the Banu Ammar against the Franks to the south, but when he heard of Tancred's advance on Artah, he diverted his army immediately to defend the fortress. Tancred's Crusader host encountered Ridwan's Turkish army on the 20th of April, near the village of Tizin, close to Artah. The territory happened to be extremely desolate and rocky, and Tancred set about using this to his advantage. Tancred knew that the land was not conducive to quick maneuvers on horses, as was the customary tactic of the Turks, since the rocky terrain could be very damaging to horse hooves. On the approach of the enemy, Tancred withdrew his forces, tempting the Turks to follow him over the harsh terrain. Ridwan did not disappoint, and pursued the Crusaders as Tancred had hoped he would. Tancred halted his army on a stretch of land just clear enough for a Frankish cavalry charge, but with the rocky terrain all around. When Ridwan's forces arrived, they were essentially hemmed in by the rugged landscape, with Tancred's army pointed at them. Tancred immediately ordered a charge, and the Crusaders, their lances couched, gave the attack. Ridwan's cavalry could not scatter on account of the terrain, and the Frankish charge devastated Ridwan's ranks. The Turks began to panic, and many even abandoned their horses in an attempt to flee. With the enemy in full rout, Tancred's knights mowed the Turks down. A huge portion of Ridwan's army was slaughtered there on that rocky plain, while Ridwan and his bodyguard barely escaped with their lives. Tancred did not hesitate to follow up on this victory. Artah immediately surrendered to him, and he went on to recapture all the territory previously lost after Haran. Tancred's army pursued the fleeing Turks all the way to the walls of Aleppo, where they plundered the suburbs. Ridwan sent a messenger to Tancred, asking for peace. The emir agreed to relinquish all his territory in the Orontes Valley, and pledged an annual tributary payment from Aleppo to Antioch. By the end of 1105, the disaster of Haran seemed all but reversed. Antioch once again controlled lands as far south as Albara and Marat an-Numan. Tancred's victory at Artah was one of the most remarkable events of the early Crusader period. It ensured that, despite the loss at Haran, the Principality of Antioch would remain the dominant power in northern Syria over the next decade. Tancred's skill as a general and his shrewd political savvy would serve the Principality well throughout his tenure.